The discovery in the ice, the wind cut through the frozen land like a knife. Endless white stretched in every direction, broken only by jagged cliffs of blue ice that rose like the teeth of a giant. The sun sat low on the horizon, glowing faintly through a pale sky. A team of scientists moved carefully across the ice field, their boots crunching with each heavy step. The Arctic had always been a place of mystery, but today it was about to reveal something no one had imagined. Dr. Evans, the lead scientist, had spent his life studying ice cores, glaciers, and the ancient secrets locked beneath them. But nothing prepared him for the shape his radar had shown that morning. Beneath the solid ice, almost 200 meters down, lay a shadow far too large and too perfect to be natural. It stretched longer than 10 skyscrapers lined end to end. The signal was strange, metallic, cold, and unlike anything known to man. When the drilling machines finally broke through, a dark surface emerged. At first the team thought it was rock, but when their gloved hands brushed away the frost, they felt smooth steel. The structure was covered in markings, lines, symbols, and grooves that seemed alive even under the ice. One of the younger researchers whispered, "This is not human." A silence followed. Even the wind seemed to pause. The team set up lights and scanners, their beams slicing through the frozen mist. The revealed surface showed a massive curve, like the hull of a ship. Frost clung to it in thick layers, with icicles hanging down like sharp teeth. The more they uncovered, the more their hearts pounded. It was not a ruin, not a piece of an old submarine. This was something else. The news spread quickly. Within hours, governments, corporations, and secret agencies sent their own people to the site. Military tents rose around the excavation zone. Helicopters circled overhead. Soldiers with rifles kept watch, though no one could say what they were guarding against. Everyone wanted to be the first to claim the discovery. As the ice melted away under industrial heaters, the true size of the object became clear. It was a spaceship, alien, ancient, and yet strangely intact. Its surface was scarred with burns, like it had fallen through fire before landing here. But its design was far more advanced than anything humans had built. Drones were sent to scan it. High-tech machines tried to cut through the hull. Lasers burned bright against the frozen surface. But every attempt ended the same way: failure. The drones froze, their circuits shorted. Lasers dimmed and flickered out. Even the most advanced tools stopped working the moment they touched the alien metal. Frustration grew. Scientists argued. Military officers demanded answers. Some thought the ship was a weapon, too dangerous to be opened. Others believed it was a treasure of technology that could change the world. But then something strange happened. While the machines failed, a simple human touch had an effect. One of the workers, a mechanic named Daniel Cole, was checking the frozen cables on the heaters. He was not a scientist or a soldier, just a technician who had repaired engines, welders, and machines all his life. Out of curiosity, he pressed his gloved hand against the alien surface. The ship responded. A faint vibration ran through the metal, so soft it was almost a breath. Frost cracked and shifted along the hull. A dim glow pulsed under the surface, like veins of light waking from a long sleep. Daniel pulled back in shock, his heart racing. Everyone around him froze in disbelief. "Do that again," Dr. Evans whispered. Daniel hesitated, then pressed his hand to the hull once more. The same thing happened. The ship stirred. The ground trembled. Ice cracked beneath their boots. The faint hum of energy grew louder, spreading across the buried vessel. The soldiers raised their rifles, fear flashing in their eyes. But the scientists leaned closer, wide-eyed with wonder. Something was alive in that ship, and it was answering not to machines, not to technology, but to a human being. Daniel stepped back, his breath fogging the cold air. He had no idea why the ship reacted to him. He was not chosen, not special, at least not in his own eyes. But in that frozen wasteland, before the silent watchers of Earth, an ancient alien ship had opened its first eye in centuries, and it had done so for him. The Arctic wind howled again, carrying snow across the excavation site. Yet nothing could drown out the feeling that spread through the team. The ship was not dead. It was waiting. And now, after so many centuries buried in silence, it had found the touch it needed to wake. Machines. Fail humanity. Tries, the camp around the frozen ship grew larger by the day. Steel towers rose against the white sky, their lights glowing like watchful eyes. Soldiers patrolled in silence, and the air was filled with the sound of generators, drilling machines, and the faint whisper of wind across endless snow. Reporters were kept far away. The world knew something had been found, but no one outside the frozen site knew the truth. The scientists argued day and night. Some wanted to cut the ship open with explosives. Others warned that a single mistake could destroy everything. Engineers worked with drones, scanners, and high-powered lasers, trying again and again to break into the hull. Each attempt ended in failure. The drones froze solid, their metal frames coated with a thin sheet of frost after only a few seconds near the ship. Advanced cutting lasers flickered out, as if the ship swallowed their power. Even the strongest drilling machines broke down the moment they touched the hull. It was as if the vessel rejected every piece of human technology. General Harris, the military commander at the site, grew impatient. "We cannot waste more time," he barked during one meeting. "This is a weapon, or at least it holds technology beyond our understanding. If another nation gets it before us, we lose everything." But Dr. Evans shook his head. "You do not understand. The ship is alive in some way. It is not a machine we can force open. It is choosing. And right now, it chooses nothing." The words carried a heavy silence. Soldiers shifted uneasily. Engineers frowned. But Daniel Cole, the mechanic, stood at the back of the tent, unsure if he should even be there. He was no scientist, no officer, just the man who fixed the heaters when they froze. Yet everyone knew what they had seen. When Daniel touched the ship, it had moved. At first, they thought it was a coincidence. But when he touched it again, and the hum returned, the truth became harder to ignore. The ship did not react to machines. It reacted to him. One night, when the Arctic storm howled loud enough to shake the camp walls, Daniel was called again. The scientists wanted him to try something new. They guided him back to the excavation pit, where the ship's curved body loomed like the side of a mountain. Bright lights illuminated the frost that still clung to its surface. Soldiers kept their rifles ready, their breath steaming in the freezing air. "Place your hand there," Dr. Evans said, pointing to a line of strange markings carved into the hull. "Do not use tools, just your hand." Daniel hesitated. His heart pounded as he stepped closer. The metal was dark, almost black and colder than the air around it. He removed his gloves slowly, his fingers trembling from the biting cold. When his skin met the alien surface, he expected only ice. Instead, warmth spread through his hand. The ship stirred again. A ripple of light passed under the hull, following the lines of alien symbols like veins, glowing with fire. The air vibrated, and snow began to fall from the walls of ice surrounding them. The ship was waking, and everyone felt it. Gasps echoed through the pit. Soldiers raised their weapons. The general shouted for order, but the ship ignored them all. It only answered Daniel. He pulled his hand away, shivering. The glow faded, but it did not disappear completely this time. The lines on the hull now pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. "It responds to human touch," Dr. Evans whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. "Not to machines, not to force. To us." "No," General Harris snapped. "Not to us." "To him," he pointed at Daniel. "The ship only listens to him." The weight of those words pressed on Daniel's chest. He had never been special. He was a man who fixed engines, who kept machines alive when others gave up on them. And yet, here in the Arctic silence, an alien ship recognized something in him that no machine, no scientist, no soldier could replace. From that moment, the world around him changed. Wherever he walked in the camp, people stared. Some with curiosity, others with jealousy, and a few with fear. Soldiers whispered that the ship had chosen him. Scientists followed his every move, desperate to learn why. But Daniel himself had no answer. All he knew was that the ship felt alive when he touched it, as if it understood him. Days passed. The ice cracked more each time he placed his hand on the hull. The glow grew stronger. Strange sounds began to echo from deep within the vessel, low, rhythmic pulses that felt almost like breathing. At night, Daniel could not sleep. His dreams were filled with visions of stars he had never seen, of battles fought in the blackness of space, of alien worlds burning under strange suns. He woke each morning drenched in sweat, his heart racing. He never told anyone about the dreams. He was not sure if they were his anymore. The scientists pushed him harder. "Touch it again," they demanded. "Stay longer. Try the symbols further down." Each time he obeyed, the ship revealed a little more. Frost slid from its hull like melting skin. The markings glowed brighter. Once Daniel thought he heard a voice, not in his ears, but deep inside his mind. A whisper in a language he did not know, yet somehow understood. He staggered back, clutching his head. But when he looked up, the scientists only saw progress. "This is the key," Dr. Evans said. "He is the key." General Harris frowned. "Then he belongs to us. And the ship will too." Daniel stood in the cold pit, surrounded by lights, guns, and the endless night sky. But for the first time he felt utterly alone. The ship had chosen him, but why? And what would happen if he continued to wake it? The ice cracked again, louder this time. The ground trembled beneath their boots. The ship's heartbeat grew stronger. Something deep inside was stirring, waiting to rise from its frozen grave, and Daniel knew machines would never bring it back. Only he could. The awakening pulse, the frozen land was no longer silent. For centuries, the ice had buried the alien ship in perfect stillness. But now, with every touch of Daniel's hand, the silence was breaking. It began with a hum, soft at first, like the faint vibration of a machine deep underground. Then it grew, spreading through the ice, through the snow, even into the air itself. People in the camp felt it in their bones, a low rhythm that did not come from any human device. The soldiers grew nervous. Their boots shifted on the icy ground. Fingers tightened around rifles. The generals shouted for calm, but fear had already spread. This was no ordinary discovery. This was something alive, something powerful, and no one could control it. Daniel stood closest to the ship. He felt the hum travel into his chest, syncing with his heartbeat. For a terrifying moment, he could not tell if the sound came from the vessel or from himself. The glowing lines on the ship pulsed brighter, following a rhythm that matched his breath. The scientists stared in awe. Dr. Evans whispered, "It is connecting to him. It knows him." The general's face hardened. "Or it is using him." The glow grew stronger. Frost shattered and slid from the hull, falling in heavy chunks that crashed into the snow below. The ship's body stretched wider into view, revealing sharp angles and smooth curves, like a design meant for both beauty and war. The markings across its hull burned brighter, forming patterns no one could read, but everyone could feel. The hum turned into a pulse. Each beat sent a vibration through the earth, shaking the lights, rattling the steel towers of the camp. Soldiers stumbled, generators flickered, and then, with a sharp crack, a beam of blue light shot upward from the ship, piercing the night sky like a signal flare. The entire camp froze in shock. The light cut through the clouds, reaching into the stars. No one knew if it was a warning, a call for help, or something far worse. Daniel staggered back, shielding his eyes. But he could not look away. Deep in his mind he felt words, not spoken, not heard, but pressed into his thoughts. "Awaken." He gasped. His heart pounded so hard he thought it would break free from his chest. The voice was not human. It was vast, cold, yet not cruel. It carried the weight of something ancient, something that had waited far too long. "Daniel!" Dr. Evans shouted. "What happened? What do you hear?" He shook his head, breathless. "It's speaking to me." The general snapped his fingers at the soldiers. "Pull him out of there now!" Two men moved forward, but before they could touch Daniel, the ship reacted again. The glow surged, and a wave of invisible force rippled outward. The soldiers were thrown to the ground. Their rifles clattered into the snow. Lights shattered. The hum became a roar. No machine remained standing. Generators died. Drones crashed into the ice. Even the communication towers fell silent. The only thing alive in that moment was the ship, And Daniel, he stood trembling, his breath steaming in the cold air. Yet unlike the others, he was not pushed back. The force surrounded him but did not harm him. Instead, it wrapped around him like a shield. The scientists were terrified and fascinated all at once. "It protects him," one whispered. "No," Dr. Evans said. "It accepts him." The general's voice thundered over the chaos. "This is not a discovery anymore. This is a threat. Shut it down before it destroys us all." But how could they shut down something older and stronger than every weapon they had? Every machine they brought had failed. Only Daniel remained. He looked at the ship, its glowing lines now pulsing like veins of fire. The hum grew louder, filling his skull. He fell to his knees, clutching his head as visions poured into his mind, stars burning in endless black space. Ships locked in battle, worlds shattering under weapons of light, screams in languages no human had ever spoken. And finally the crash. The ship falling through fire, striking ice, buried in silence for centuries. Daniel saw them, the aliens. Tall, strange, beautiful in a way that was not human. They sat in chambers of glass, their eyes closed, their bodies frozen in stillness. They had not died. They had been waiting. The vision ended as quickly as it began. Daniel gasped for air, his chest heaving. He could still hear the word echoing in his mind. Awaken. He turned to the others, his voice hoarse. "They are alive, inside, waiting for me." The camp erupted in panic. Some shouted in disbelief, others demanded proof. The general drew his pistol, pointing it at Daniel. "Enough lies! You are under arrest until we understand what this thing is." The ship responded before Daniel could speak. A deep rumble shook the ground, splitting the ice in jagged lines that spread outward like cracks in glass. A second beam of light erupted into the sky, brighter than the first, bathing the entire camp in blue fire. Snow and ice collapsed around the vessel, revealing more of its massive body. What had once looked like a buried mountain now stretched into the open, a ship of impossible size and power. Soldiers ran. Scientists screamed. The general dropped his weapon as the ground swallowed his command tent whole. And still, Daniel stood untouched, wrapped in the pulse of energy. The ship's voice echoed again, stronger, filling every corner of his mind. Awaken. Daniel knew then that the world would never be the same. The ice had hidden more than a ship. It had hidden a promise. And now, after centuries of silence, the alien vessel was alive again because of him. Secrets of the frozen crew. The camp was no longer a camp. It was a battlefield of fear. The light from the ship still burned against the sky, a blue fire that could be seen for miles across the ice. Generators lay silent. Towers had collapsed. Soldiers crouched behind broken vehicles with weapons in their shaking hands. Yet none of their machines mattered anymore. The only thing alive in the storm of chaos was the alien ship, and Daniel. He stood at the edge of the excavation pit, breathing hard, his body trembling from the visions forced into his mind. He had seen the war, the destruction, the fall of the aliens, and now he knew what the ship carried inside. "They are not dead," Daniel whispered. His voice was low, almost lost in the howling wind. "They are waiting." Dr. Evans rushed to his side. His glasses were cracked, his coat torn from the quake, but his eyes burned with desperate curiosity. "What do you mean? What did you see?" Daniel shook his head. He could not explain it in full. The visions were not words but feelings, pictures, pieces of memory that were not his own. He had felt the fear of the aliens as they crashed. He had felt the silence of centuries as ice swallowed their ship. And now he felt their restless hunger to rise again. The general stormed forward, pistol still clutched in his hand. His face was red with rage. "Enough of this madness. I will not lose control of this site to some mechanic and his alien hallucinations. This ship is a threat, and I will destroy it if I must." But even as he spoke, the ground shook once more. A line split across the hull of the ship, thin at first, then widening as ice shattered and fell away. Steam hissed into the cold air. Lights flickered inside the crack. Everyone froze. The soldiers raised their rifles. Scientists held their breath. Daniel felt his knees weaken. A door was opening. The crack widened until a section of the hull shifted with a groaning sound like metal tearing after centuries of silence. Inside was a chamber of glass, glowing faintly with blue light. Rows of tall, transparent pods stood like tombs, and inside each one, shapes. The crowd gasped. They were not skeletons, not corpses. They were beings. Alien figures stood in the pods, their eyes closed, their bodies frozen in strange, beautiful stillness. Their skin shimmered like silver stone. Their limbs were long, graceful, almost fragile. Yet even in their sleep, they looked powerful, like warriors carved from another world. Dr. Evans stepped forward, his voice shaking. Cryostasis. They put themselves in sleep, waiting to be awakened. One of the soldiers muttered, "Those things should stay buried," but Daniel could not look away. His breath caught in his chest as he saw them more clearly. They were not monsters. They were not dead. They were survivors. And somehow the ship had tied their survival to him. His hand moved unconsciously toward the glass. The markings on the pods glowed as his fingers neared. Symbols lit up across the chamber, flowing like liquid light. The hum of the ship grew louder. "Stop!" General Harris shouted. "Do not touch it." But it was too late. Daniel's palm pressed against the pod. The alien's eyes snapped open. The being inside stared at him through the glass, its gaze piercing and strange. It was not human, but its eyes carried something familiar, recognition, as if it had expected him all along. The chamber filled with sound, a sharp tone that rattled the bones of everyone present. The other pods flickered in response, their occupants stirring. The scientists fell to their knees in awe. The soldiers shouted, their rifles trembling in their hands. The general's face turned pale. "They are waking," Dr. Evans whispered. "Dear God, they are waking!" Daniel stumbled back, clutching his chest as the alien voice returned in his mind, stronger now. "You are the key. You are the spark." He gasped for air, trying to steady himself.
"Why me?"
he whispered. "Why not them? Why not the machines?" The voice did not answer with words, but with a feeling, warmth, trust, and a strange bond that made his skin crawl yet filled his heart with something he could not name. The alien raised its hand inside the pod, mirroring his movement. At that moment Daniel understood. The ship had waited for a human. Not for power, not for technology, for something else. Something machines could not give. The general could not bear it. He raised his pistol, aiming at Daniel. "Step away! This ends now!" The ship reacted instantly. A wall of energy burst outward, throwing the general back into the snow. His gun spun into the darkness. Soldiers fired their rifles in panic, but the bullets never reached their targets. The air rippled, bending around the ship. The aliens inside their pods opened their eyes one by one, glowing faintly as the hum rose to a deafening roar. Daniel fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the light, the sound, the visions. His mind was not his own anymore. It was theirs. He saw their memories again. They had not come to conquer. They had fled. They had been hunted across the stars. Their last hope had been Earth, its ice sealing them away until the day they could rise again. And that day had come. As the chamber glowed brighter, Daniel realized the truth. He had not chosen the ship. The ship had chosen him. The frozen crew of aliens were no longer only survivors. They were an army waiting for rebirth, and humanity, through him, was the final piece to unlock their return. The wind screamed across the Arctic plains. The ship roared like thunder, and Daniel, a simple mechanic, stood at the center of it all, caught between fear, wonder, and the knowledge that the future of both species now rested in his trembling hands. Humanity's key. The Arctic night was no longer quiet. The alien ship pulsed with life, glowing veins of blue light spreading across its vast hull. The snow reflected the brightness until the whole camp looked like it was drowned in fire from another world. Soldiers who once thought they controlled the site now crouched behind broken machines, their rifles useless. Scientists huddled together, caught between awe and terror, and at the center of it all stood Daniel. The pods inside the ship glowed like lanterns. One by one, the frozen aliens stirred, their eyes opening to reveal burning colors no human had ever seen. Some glowed gold, others violet, some a deep blue that seemed to reach into the soul. They pressed their hands against the glass, moving slowly, as though time itself was heavy after centuries of silence. Daniel's chest pounded. His hand trembled as he reached back toward the nearest pod. When his fingers brushed the glass, the alien inside tilted its head, mirroring him again. A surge of warmth and cold at the same time shot through his body. The hum of the ship deepened. Suddenly the pod door slid open with a hiss of vapor. The being stepped out, tall and fragile-looking, yet carrying a presence that filled the chamber. Its skin shimmered like metal under light, and its movements were graceful, as though gravity barely touched it. The soldiers panicked, raising their rifles. "Hold fire!" Dr. Evans screamed. His voice cracked with fear and wonder. "Do you not see? It is not attacking." The alien turned its glowing eyes toward Daniel. For a moment, no one breathed. Then it did something no one expected. It knelt before him. A ripple of shock went through the humans watching. The general, half buried in snow where the ship had thrown him earlier, stared in disbelief. It bowed to him. The alien spoke, not with sound but with thought. Daniel heard the voice inside his head, calm and heavy with age. "You are the key. Humanity carries what we lost. Through you we rise." Daniel's throat was dry. He barely found the words. "What do you want from me?" The alien raised its hand, pointing toward the other pods. "Wake them. With your touch, their hearts will beat again." Daniel looked back at the humans standing outside the chamber. Soldiers trembled with their weapons. Scientists leaned forward with wide, shining eyes. Fear and hope mixed in the frozen air. He knew what his choice meant. If he awakened them, the world would change forever. General Harris staggered to his feet. His voice was hoarse but full of anger. "Do not do it. You are handing our world to invaders. They will take Earth and we will all be slaves." Dr. Evans shook his head. His voice was trembling, but his eyes were bright. "No, don't you see? They chose him. They need us, not as slaves, but as partners. He is the bridge." Daniel's breath came heavy. His hands shook as he stepped toward the next pod. He pressed his palm against the glass. The glow spread, and the alien inside opened its eyes. Another pod hissed open, then another. The chamber filled with light and vapor as the crew awoke from their long sleep. Each alien that stepped out turned first, not to the generals, not to the scientists, not to the weapons, but to him. Some placed their hands over their chests. Others bowed their heads. A silent vow passed through them all. The general shouted again, his voice drowned by the hum. He raised his pistol, desperate to stop what he could not control. But before he could fire, the ship itself reacted. Energy flared around Daniel, a shield of light that burned with power. The bullet never reached him. It dissolved in the air, turned to nothing by the ship's will. The alien leader turned its gaze on the general. The weight of it made him stumble back. For the first time, he looked small, broken, powerless. Daniel felt the voice in his head again. "Through you, we live. Through us, you rise. The old war is not over. But with you, it can be won." Visions filled him, alien fleets waiting in the dark, enemies still searching for them, galaxies in chaos. And through it all, he saw humanity's place, not as prey or servants, but as something greater. He dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. He was only a mechanic, a man who fixed broken machines. How could he carry the weight of two worlds? But then he remembered the truth. Machines had failed. Lasers had failed. Even the might of nations had failed. Only his hands, his touch, his humanity had brought the ship back to life. That was what made him different. That was why they had chosen him. He stood again, his fear replaced by resolve. He placed both hands on the ship's glowing surface. The pulse grew louder, spreading into the sky like thunder. The ground shook as engines that had slept for centuries roared to life. Snow exploded outward as the ship rose from its icy grave. Soldiers fell back, their weapons useless. Scientists screamed and cheered all at once. The camp broke into chaos as the impossible became real. The ship lifted higher, massive and alive, light spilling across the Arctic night. The aliens stood beside Daniel, no longer frozen survivors, but a reborn crew. Together, they looked to him, not as their master, not as their servant, but as their key. The hum turned into a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat that belonged to both the ship and the man who woke it. And as the ship soared into the clouds, Daniel realized that humanity's place in the universe had changed forever. The aliens had not come to enslave. They had come to survive, and only through humanity could they do it. The world would soon learn the truth. The frozen ship had not just been a discovery. It had been a test, and in the end, it was not power, not machines, not armies that unlocked it. It was a single human hand.